Taoiseach, I want to give you an insight into the vicious assault on workers' wages and conditions which is underway in this country under your stewardship. Now, I want you to draw your attention to a delegation who are present in the gallery who have a very keen and personal interest in this situation. A group of workers who never knew last Tuesday morning when they tried to go to work before 7 o'clock that they'd be sitting here today. They thought they'd be doing what they've done in many instances for years, in others for decades, that they'd be out collecting this city's bins. Instead, when they arrived for their 10-hour shift, they were met at the door with a new clock card system. Now, that was a bit of a sideshow. They hadn't heard of it, but that wasn't the main point. The real agenda was, after that, they were expected to sign a new contract with an over 24% cut in basic wages, not to mention cuts in other allowances with immediate effect. Now, let's be clear here. These workers weren't living the high life anyway. They have a modest wage as drivers and an even more modest one as operatives. They were being asked to take a cut of between 250 and 270 euros per week for drivers and between 120 and 140 for operatives. Now, how any worker could be expected to take a hit is beyond me. The reality here is that this was an orchestrated manoeuvre to undermine the unionised workers, because the employer immediately marched down to the High Court and got an injunction against them, and with the assistance of the local intro office, recruited people to take their jobs. Now, the consequence of bringing people in with no training and no experience was that the first truck that drove out knocked down and hospitalised Ray O'Reilly, who's in the gallery. The next night, another truck rammed 3 cars on James's Street. Ambulance and Gardaí had to be called, and I'm wondering whether there's going to be a fatality from these antics. So, the Taoiseach, what I want to put to you is that these unsafe practices are going to have far-reaching consequences, and the only way that the Greyhound company can do this is by exploiting others to do that work in an illegal manner, because what they're doing is making the routes longer, making them impossible to complete. So what happens is, at 5 o'clock, when these workers go home, a procurer of casual labour arrives at the car park in Woodies and, like a scene out of On the Waterfront, selects people to go in and work through the night to clear the bins that haven't been done. Now, what I want to put to you, Taoiseach, is, are you going to stand by and allow practices, to be honest, that will be more suited to an episode of The Sopranos be undertaken in this state, or will you instead immediately instruct NERA to launch an investigation into Greyhound, into the Buckley brothers and into Gary Bogdan, the procurer of casual labour, to verify compliance with all of the state's legal requirements, taxation requirements, health and safety requirements and so on?
You can't be naming people in the chamber, please.
And will you finally, Taoiseach, instruct Dublin City Council to ensure compliance with the city's bylaws in terms of the presentation of waste, so that this company can't go out in the midnight hours to use super exploited workers to undermine wages?
Deputy. Well, there's a time limit on this, and I'd ask you please to adhere to it. I don't want to be interrupting you, but if you go way over your time, I'm obliged to do so. Would you please adhere to the time?
It seems extraordinary that workers should be asked to take a cut of 250 to 270 euro per week without any discussions or without any notice being given to them. I do find that extraordinary, and I find it equally extraordinary that if, as you say, the incidents that you record, Deputy Daly, with what appear to be untrained workers driving substantial sized trucks are involved in the kind of incidents that you describe here. I would say that clearly the Labour Relations Commission have an opportunity to get involved here, and the machinery of the state, as you know, has worked exceptionally well in many difficult and sensitive circumstances over the years. Now, I see the workers in the gallery that you mentioned, but I would expect that any company, private or public, should be amenable to the machinery, as I say, of the state becoming involved in a dispute like this. Clearly, danger arising from the incidents that you recount here in the Dáil are palpable. So from the perspective of government, obviously the capacity of the state to intervene is through the LRC and other mechanisms. I'd be happy to see that can be made available for these workers in respect of the company that they deal with.
Deputy Daly, you have 1 minute. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear you say that the circumstances are extraordinary, Taoiseach, but they are in fact true. And if you really mean what you say, then I think there'll be a follow-on from this discussion here now, because there were discussions underway in the company. There's been 3 Labour Court attendances over the past 18 months, but sadly the employer has either broken or not recognised any of those decisions and has instead resorted to the costly mechanism of the High Court. And indeed there was a case this morning which was adjourned for until next Tuesday. So the facts of untrained workers being out on the streets is true. The fact of people being picked up in car parks that nobody knows who they are and being brought in to do the work of these unionised workers who pay tax and revenue is true. So I want to put the question to you again. If you are indeed, and all of us are appalled by what is being put in front of this, then we have to do something. Will you instruct your Minister for Jobs to get the NERA inspectors now to go out and investigate those companies to see who these casual workers are? Are they paying tax? Is PRSI have they been trained? Because I think that's the only way in which they're being super exploited to undermine the work of these men who are here today.
It's actually more serious than that from what you say. I think you recounted here that one truck smashed into 3 cars, and another truck got involved in some other kind of an incident. If that's the case, I mean, are the drivers of these trucks properly licensed to drive trucks of that size or that scale? Or am I to understand that these are people who are incompetent and, you know, not qualified to drive a truck of that scale? As I said, Deputy Daly, you know, you raise a fundamental point here that if workers in a unionised position working for a company were not even informed of the requirement to take a drop of, you said between 250 and 270 euro per week, which seems to be quite extraordinary, without any consultation. So you mentioned about NERA. I'll see that they're contacted, and we'll also, have the LRC informed of this, that they're a tried and proven record in many sensitive cases over the years.
Thank you. That completes Leaders' questions for today. We now move on to